Good evening. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Welcome working group members and members of the public to our sixth Mid-City Community Plan Update Working Group meeting. My name is Morgan Ruby, and I'm a senior planner in the City Planning Department, and will be helping to facilitate this working group meeting tonight. This meeting is being recorded, and that is to support anyone who cannot join us tonight and would like to follow along. It will be posted on the Plan Update website following the meeting. Here is our agenda for the evening. We will start with the introduction, and then city staff will be presenting in two parts. The first part will focus on the history and place chapter of the ideas report. After that, we will pause for 20 minutes for a chance for our working group members to reflect, share their thoughts, and add any questions. The second part, we will be focused on mobility and parks, public facilities, and open space, and with a 25-minute pause for working group discussion. Following that, we will then take public comments for 25 minutes and conclude this meeting promptly at 8 p.m. So moving on to today's presenters from the City Planning Department, I introduced myself already, and we also have Alex Frost from the Community Planning section, Kelsey from the Heritage Preservation team, Emmanuel from the Mobility team, and Jonathan from the Parks Planning team. Working behind the scenes tonight, we also have Selena, Aparna, and Mauricio, and we have other city staff available in person and online to address any questions. So now for a general update and overview of the Mid-City Community Plan update. We have our working group members here tonight who are all residents of Mid-City representing all the different areas. They were brought on through an application process, and for those curious about that application process, it is on our project website. Their role as working group members is as follows: to be involved in the plan from start to finish, to review project materials related to public engagement, research, and technical studies, to suggest ideas that could be included in the plan update, and provide feedback on proposals related to the plan. I'll also add a request for all of us in this meeting, which is to listen to each other and to the public, because we are seeking to create a dynamic update for a very diverse community. So we want to be collective about our approach and hear everyone's point of view. Here are some logistics for the meeting. Another reminder, this meeting is being recorded. For those online, you can use the chat function to share written questions or comments throughout the meeting, and we will try to answer them during the public comment period near the end. If we do not have time to answer all of the questions in the chat, we will include responses with our meeting summary following this meeting. For our working group members, during the discussion portions, please use the raise hand function if you're online so that we know you would like to speak, and we'll call on you. For members of the public, during the public comment period at the end, we'll have you step up to the podium on the left side of the room and unmute the microphone. And in the webinar format, you will not be able to turn on your camera if you're a member of the public online. So please observe the way we'd like to hold space together tonight with this list of meeting agreements. We want to interact respectfully with project staff, working group members, and members of the community. We want to stay concise and create time for as many voices in the room and online to contribute. We want to consider the diverse needs and goals of the Mid-City's communities and work to provide inclusive input and resources. We want to share relevant, on-topic perspectives and information, and we want to help maintain a welcoming and inclusive environment that values all perspectives. In order to stick to our meeting agreement and stay concise and creating time for as many voices to contribute as possible, there could be a topic that comes up where we are going back and forth, feeling stuck, or have questions that we don't have answer to in the moment. In those moments, I'll ask that we table the topic and either revisit in the end if there is time, or it might be something that the team follows up about after the meeting and addresses through the meeting summary notes. I'll be watching out for moments like this to keep us on track and moving forward. And with that, I'll pass it over to Alex.
Thanks, Morgan. Hello, my name is Alex Frost, project manager for the Mid-City Communities Plan Update. For those new to the plan update, Mid-City planning area includes 4 communities: City Heights, Eastern Area, Kensington, Talmadge, and Normal Heights. And within these communities, there are 24 neighborhoods. Mid-City area is about 8,000 acres, and about 10% of the city population call Mid-City home. The city's updating the community plan to help shape the future of Mid-City area for the next 20 to 30 years. The current plan was last adopted in 1998. We are wrapping up phase 2, community validation process, where we're collecting input on early options based on community ideas and technical analysis. And we'll be moving on to phase 3, where we anticipate releasing the first draft of community plan in spring of next year. The draft ideas report was released on August 12th, 2025. The purpose of the report is to share ideas and concepts with the public to help further discuss and receive input. The report explores preliminary Mid-City visions, frameworks, and concepts informed by extensive public engagement and existing condition analysis. The public input to the draft report will help inform the draft community plan. And as this diagram shows, we are anticipating releasing engagement summary for the phase 2 in early 2026, which will include all the comments we've received and city's response to it, and some of the recommended changes will then reflect it in the draft community plan. We have been doing quite a bit of recent engagement activities. We presented the ideas report at 4 community planning groups in September and October. We also hosted community office hours in the 4 communities within Mid-City. City staff also attended Ciclos Dias, City Heights last Sunday with a pop-up booth, and we also received some feedback from that event. And I think some of the working group members attended as well. I think I saw you, Victor, and it was a great event to see all the kids and families and everybody biking. Draft ideas report feedback. There are different ways to provide comments by November 21st, 2025. We have the public comment form at the project website. We've been receiving emails and letters. You can provide comment at the working group meeting. People have been providing comments at the planning group meetings and also attending the office hours, pop-ups, and other meetings. How we will document the feedback to inform the draft community plan. So we'll have several documents, but we'll have a summary of working group comments, which will be its own document, and an overall phase 2 public engagement summary, which will include all the feedback we've heard from the public. Now, moving on to update on the land use concepts. So we asked the working group members to rank their top 3 land use concepts out of the 5 land use that's highlighted in the draft ideas report. We heard back from everyone, and so I will share what the top 3 is. So the top 3 land use concepts based on the working group member votes. So number 1 was the land use concept 2 concept called transit villages, corridors, neighborhoods, plus fair housing. And the number 2 was tied, land use concept 4, which was the distributed growth, updating most of the residential areas in Mid-City. And then land use concept 5, transit centers and corridors, or just the corridors and activity nodes. So these were the top 3 that was ranked by the working group members. However, Governor Newsom signed Senate Bill SB 79 on October 10th, potentially impacting these land use concepts. More information will be available at the next working group meeting, but from the preliminary analysis by the city, it appears the El Cajon Boulevard busway and the 3 transit stations along El Cajon, basically from 805 to Fairmont Avenue, may qualify based on the bill's language, and also the City Heights Transit Plaza, the Rapid 230 to 35 that may qualify as well. SANDAG, our regional transportation planning agency, is responsible for creating the official map, so we still need to wait for that result. But it will potentially impact these land use concepts. And if there's any questions, we can try to answer them in 10 minutes after Kelsey's presentation. So that concludes my portion. I'll pass it on to Kelsey for the history in place.
Hey, everybody. My name is Kelsey Kaline, Associate Planner in the Heritage Preservation section of the City Planning Department. With me today, behind me, sitting is Kelly Stonko, Deputy Director of the Climate Preservation and Public Spaces Division. This presentation is intended to introduce the preliminary mid-city ideas for history and place and provide an update on the public review drafts of the 2 technical studies which we have previously presented to this working group. So as previously presented in December and March, as part of the technical studies for the Plan Mid-City Update, 2 historic preservation technical reports were prepared. The first is a historic context statement, which describes the significant historic themes and patterns in the communities and provides a foundation for identifying and evaluating historical resources within the plan area. The second is a focused reconnaissance survey, which is a high-level fieldwork effort intended to gather basic information for a broad area. A reconnaissance level survey looks for areas of shared development history, areas that may be a potential historic district, and also evaluates post-World War II residential tracts for exemption from our over 45 historic review process. A reconnaissance survey often provides a recommendation for areas that need an intensive level survey, which is an implementation action used to potentially nominate eligible historic districts for designation. City staff has been collecting public comment on these technical documents since their release in early January. We've received 22 public comments about the historic context statement. Staff has prepared responses to all of these, as Alex mentioned, for release with the historic preservation element and the engagement phase 2. We incorporated 17 of these comments into the documents, ranging from picture formatting to clarification of dates and statements, and public comment is still welcome on these technical documents. We also received numerous public comments about the focused reconnaissance survey. Some comments proposed properties for the study list, including some comments from this working group. These have been added into an attached study list, which we're calling the community study list. A few comments also discussed issues with a figure that have since been corrected. A few comments discussed evaluating the Kensington districts that were proposed as one district, and the majority of comments were focused on the Talmadge Park Estates National Register District and the boundaries of the identified potential Talmadge Park Estates District. As a reminder, the reconnaissance survey is not a regulatory document and the findings are not regulated. It is just a starting point for guidance. Based on public comments, city staff has made clarifications and updates to the survey document. Our current version was posted this afternoon on the historic context and surveys page and will be put on the project page as well tomorrow. We will continue to welcome public feedback, as I mentioned, through November. And in order to better address community feedback, city staff met with members of the public, including the Talmadge Historical Society, on August 26th and October 24th. So I'm going to just briefly go over what updates we made in response to these public comments. As part of the public review process, city staff drafted a more comprehensive survey methodology, which is on page 6 of our reconnaissance survey, defining what a reconnaissance level survey is, how it is conducted, and what its intended use is for. This added text clarifies that a reconnaissance level survey, the results are not final or regulatory and requires additional future intensive survey work to verify these findings. And as part of that future intensive level survey process, the boundaries of any identified potential historic district may be expanded, reduced, or otherwise modified. Based on review of the historic context statement and public comment, city staff also clarified that the 2 proposed Kensington districts, Kensington Park and Kensington Manor and Heights, should be evaluated and intensively surveyed together to determine appropriate district boundaries and period of significance. The majority of our comments and updates to the report focused on the potential Talmadge Park Historic District. We provided an explanation of the survey document's relationship between the already established Talmadge Park Estates National Register District and the consultant identified local Talmadge Park District. The National Register District is discussed in the document as an already established historic district, but staff provided a call out to where more information about that district can be found. And we also clarified that a shared context between all 4 Talmadge subdivisions may be found and that all 4 subdivisions should be researched and surveyed together. Reiterating that, in the updated report, city staff inserted new language clarifying that based on the shared historic context and overlapping boundaries, the city is committed to intensively surveying the entire Talmadge area, including Talmadge Park Estates Unit 1 and the Talmadge Gates Local District. This will allow for any boundary decision to be made cohesively using all subdivision information and available data. City staff also shifted a language in a table to incorporate any Talmadge subdivision that will be intensively surveyed. And finally, staff worked on a more visually cohesive map that focused on all subdivisions that will be intensely surveyed in the future for Talmadge. The map also corrects an error with the Talmadge Gates boundary. And okay, so kind of shifting into an overall findings. The survey found 4 potential districts and 2 existing districts. I've put a box around the 2 Kensington districts to indicate that these will be evaluated together. And as discussed, the Talmadge Park Estates boundaries may be expanded or changed based on future intensive survey. There are already 2 existing historic districts within the Mid-City Plan area, including the Talmadge Park Estates National Register District and the Island Air Historic District in City Heights. So shifting gears towards the future in the plan update, we have created preliminary goals and policy ideas focused on history and place. These draft ideas will be used to inform our policies presented as part of the historic preservation element. In Mid-City, our first goal is to establish a formal historic district work program for the area based on equity and need. And as part of implementing a historic district work program, the city will also intensively survey Mid-City for historic resources, along with continuing public outreach. Another goal is to generally promote the benefits of historic preservation, including sustainability and adaptive reuse, social cohesion, educational value, and the potential for economic development. We are also aiming to promote balancing historic preservation with new development. This may include implementing the district work program, strategically planning density around building typology, and promoting sensitive infill. These policies will be further supported and implemented through Preservation in Progress, the comprehensive update to the city's heritage preservation program that will provide regulatory clarity for incorporating new development into historical resources in districts in a manner that preserves their historic integrity and significance. For this update, we will also provide clarity and more certainty in the planning process for areas that have a concrete shared development history. In order to do this, we are looking at exempting post-World War II master planned communities from the commonly referred to over 45 review. Our reconnaissance survey effort identified post-World War II master plan communities that share development history but lack historical significance and integrity. Although these areas have a low likelihood of any parcel meeting the city's designation criteria, individual homeowners are still able to submit a historic nomination for their property. And then finally, it's always the goal within our community plan updates to help celebrate cultural diversity and heritage. Some ideas include emphasizing local culture through murals, events, and signage, encouraging improved social hearts and commercial hubs, and encouraging new cultural districts and gateway signs. So as previously mentioned, this plan update is being drafted alongside our timeline for Preservation in Progress. We hope to further engage the community in Preservation in Progress and implement and recommend any of the new tools created for this plan. This may include utilization of a multiple property listing framework, a new commemorative designation process, and the use of new educational and engagement tools. So we invite all of you here to participate in these discussions, which you can find on our website. And that concludes the history and place presentation, and we're happy to answer everyone's questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelsey. We will now pause again for a 20-minute working group discussion. Please consider these questions at the top as a prompt. To start our working group members, as a reminder, please state your name if it is your first time speaking. And with that, would anyone like to start? Yes, David.
Since it seems to be up to me to mostly go first. I want to say my historic preservation philosophy has always been that historic districts are more meaningful historic preservation than individual designation. So I'm so pleased to see that historic districts are being seriously looked at in Kensington and Talmadge. And so, yes, I'm just very pleased with that. I am wondering how historic preservation will work with some of these more invasive potential development concepts. If there was intensive redevelopment of Kensington and Talmadge with a large population expansion, then there would have to be a major rethink of the parks development plans for Kensington and Talmadge to accommodate all of that population. Because we are the second most park deprived planning area in the city. And so you can't simply just redevelop us and not have a meaningful park development plan. And if there isn't a meaningful park development plan, then I do believe most development should be concentrated along Elkhorn Boulevard, which is the area that is closest and only area that is within walking distance for Talmadge of other park space.
Thank you for your comment. Lisa.
So I guess my question is why did we separate Kensington Manor Heights and Park? What's the historical significant reason for that?
The consultant separated them out based on subdivision build out dates. So the period of significance for them, if you go back to the historic context statement, is shifted a little bit. However, they do share common themes.
Yeah.
So that's why we're looking at them as one whole.
So if you change this to look at them as one whole, they would all be a single.
Yes, but the areas would be the same. It's just adding those two maps together.
And can I ask why we're separating Talmadge Park as well? What's the significance of that?
The Talmadge Park Estates, our consultant found that
No, Talmadge Park, not. You're calling it Talmadge Park. I don't think you're calling it Talmadge Park Estates. Units 1 and 2, yeah. So just, here's my comment. People who live on the Alder Loop and the Talmadge Loop, which is my description for it, and I think the MAD calls it Talmadge 1 and 2 for the maintenance assessor. Those people think that they live in Kensington. They don't think that they live in Talmadge, right? So I'm just uncertain. It feels a little bit like a bureaucratic exercise to separate these districts when they're really all one and the same and they share so much commonality. I mean, there could be some rationale behind Talmadge Park. I'm not an expert, so I would defer to an expert, but it does seem unnecessary to me to have. And it seems like you would then have to do more work if you had multiple districts, right? There would be more work for the city. There's definitely more work for the city for anything that you separate, right? So it just seems not very economical or streamlined in any way. And I'm just curious if they could be one district, why not? Like, do we really want that overhead, right?
I think Kelly has an answer for you.
Hi, Kelly. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. I'm Kelly Stonko. I'm the Deputy Director in City Planning Department over our Climate Preservation and Public Spaces Division. One of the things I think we but just a distinction in terms of looking at historic context statements is, how things kind of historically developed don't necessarily have a relationship to how people understand communities and boundaries to be today. So we certainly understand why folks who are within an area that was subdivided with a particular name don't necessarily identify as being that name. That being said, I do want to make it clear that identifying potential district areas based on kind of saying, we'd look at this subdivision, and this subdivision, it doesn't necessarily create duplicative or extra work. We're just kind of, with a reconnaissance level survey, we're doing a cursory level of research and evaluation. And so one of the things we're looking at is when and how was the area subdivided and when, and looking for patterns in that. And then saying, okay, well, these areas kind of developed at a similar time. They look like they have a shared context. So we should look at this subdivision, this subdivision, this subdivision, and look at the whole area and survey it. So it's more of a historic preservation, peculiarity as opposed to anything that has, I think, real significance in terms of community identity. So we'll be looking at anything within the boundary that we determined to survey with or determined to survey. And then based on our research and our survey work, kind of determine what is that shared significance, what is significance, what is the appropriate name for that subdivision. All of that is kind of the intensive level survey work. This is all very cursory.
And when does the intensive level survey work start?
That would be a future implementation action. As Kelsey highlighted, one of the things we'd be looking to do is to develop a historic district work program for the community plan area, where we kind of map out, okay, these are the potential districts we've identified. And as we have resources available, either staff resources, grant funds, whatever it may be, then we'll go out, do more detailed research on the area, survey it property by property, and thoroughly document each property and determine whether or not.
I think we did that in 1996 too, right?
That was still a reconnaissance level survey. So that was a photo and an address and an APN and a very cursory level description. If you look at a historic district nomination for each property, you have a detailed architectural description. You have research into the permit history, sandbar mat. It's a significant amount of work to go from a reconnaissance survey to an intensive level survey and a district nomination.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other working group members like to discuss history in place or anything presented so far? Yes, Nam.
For preservation, and also echoing the concern of if we, based on some of these land use concepts for these areas, what sort of regulatory practices are available to restrict new construction in these historic areas, if it has to be done.
Sorry to interrupt the conversation, but we're not able to hear anything.
Do I need to speak louder? Maybe. Okay.
Much better.
Once again, my name is Nam Nguyen over in City Heights, echoing the appreciation for the study for historic preservation, and also wanted to bring up the question about if there is, based on land use concept developments, what regulations are there to for any construction, whether it's has to be 1-for-1, or we have the opportunity for restrictions so that any construction has to follow historic or local architectural vernacular.
Anyway, okay. So in terms of incorporating development into designated historic districts and areas, Kelsey mentioned in her presentation our Preservation in Progress initiative, which is our comprehensive update to our historic preservation program. As part of that, in our second package of amendments that will be moving through the process in 2026, we are looking at developing objective design standards for historic districts. The housing legislation that has come down from the state in recent years has really emphasized the need when doing design review on housing developments that be objective in nature. And so one of our work items with Preservation in Progress is to take the U.S. Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties, which is our guidance for how you treat a historic resource or district, and kind of interpret those into objective standards so that we can incorporate new development into historic districts in a manner that protects their historic significance and also meets all of our regulatory requirements and obligations as far as objective standards and provides that clarity as well for the neighborhoods and for developers.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else in the room like to make a comment before we move to the online working group members? All right. Oh, yes, Di, go ahead.
Hello, Di Spittle, Talmadge. And I'd also like to add in about the parks and open spaces. We are going to have more people living in Mid-City. And right now, as it stands, living in Talmadge, I actually live really close to El Cajon Boulevard towards the southern end. And for me to get access to a proper green space where my friend can take her daughter and we can go watch her play at the park, we have to ride our bikes all the way to Kensington. And it would be really, really nice to have something like that accessible in the area of Talmadge, and I think the northern part of City Heights. I think having access to green spaces helps everyone's mental healthiness, our physical, and also having access to nature, we can learn more about ourselves and it brings people together as a community. So if we want to have community at its core going forward, I think having access to open spaces and parks needs to be part of the plan.
Thank you for your comment. Yes, Victor, go ahead.
Okay, cool. Victor Ponce, City Heights representing, but also live in Normal Heights. I've echoed before the sentiment about needing to add housing. I think it's a lot of it we've been doing on El Cajon and University. I live off Adams. I know there's places that are abandoned right now that we could take advantage of doing some housing there. I want to echo the sentiment right about the green spaces. In the past, we talked about redoing Terralta Park. It's only one block right now, but we know when the 15 was created, it's like multiple blocks. So I think that also falls into the boundaries from like El Cajon Boulevard to Adams to us also adding that in for Kensington. For Talmadge, I don't know. I don't have the answer for green spaces there, but I would love to see that just more green spaces in general. I know Alex mentioned seeing that many ciclodias, right? Being able to just ride without having to worry about cars and things like that, it is a different feeling and just better overall. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will have a presenter from the parks planning team. So those interested in parks and open space, we can save those questions for them and you'll be able to get a bit more context. With that, any other working group members in the room have a comment on history in place before we move on to online working group members? All right. With that, Aparna, I'll pass it to you to facilitate the online discussion.
Thank you, Morgan. I see one working group member attending virtually today. Zach, if you have any comments, please feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, Zach here. Live in Orlando Park in the eastern end of the district. But my comment is more to the presentation of information when it comes to the different land use concepts. I know that the state law may impact how much influence these have, but regardless, it's a little hard to follow the densities that are proposed in each one of the concepts. And I would suggest maybe putting a transect on these concepts that shows the different type of housing stock that you define earlier, you know, the walk-ups versus townhomes, and then maybe just highlights which one of those apply to which one of these districts, because it's a little hard to follow what kind of density you're really talking about when you get away from the main corridors. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Zach. Back over to you, Morgan.
Yeah, so I can respond to that, Zach. So the next step for us, so Mid-City has over 24,000 parcels. So to develop a detailed land use map with all the density ranges, that's the next step. And with the guidance from the working group and the ranking, that'll actually help us. So at the next meeting, we'll have the detailed land use map with all the different density ranges at the parcel level. And then we'll try to connect it with the building types, as you mentioned, so people can easily understand, well, what does 80 dwelling units per acre mean? Like, what kind of building is that? So we'll definitely try to link that together at the next meeting. Thanks for the comment.
All right. Thank you, everyone. If there's no more working group member comments, We can now move to the next presentations, which are, we have presenters from both mobility and the parks planning team presenting consecutively. Working group discussion will follow in public comment after that. I'm sorry, we have one more working group member comment. Yes, Brittany.
Hold it. No. Hello. Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Pagiolo, representing City Heights. Okay. I do have a question. Hold on, I have it in my notes. Sorry about that. What anti-displacement strategies are being considered as density increases along corridors like El Cajon Boulevard and University?
Thanks for the question, Brittany. We did receive a letter from TAEA, Transportation Equity Affordable Housing Task Force. And the city has provided response to some of those questions related to anti-displacement strategies. In the ideas report, we highlight existing tenant protection and dwelling unit replacement ordinances that currently exist that we feel like it provides a sufficient anti-displacement protection. But we can definitely explore additional policies. I think with this SB 79 too also has a anti-displacement measures incorporated into it and more aggressive inclusionary housing requirement. So we have to kind of study that. The state requirement stronger than our current city requirement? So that's part of the analysis, and the city planning department is also looking at updating our citywide inclusionary requirement. So there's initiative and, trying to figure out how to further fair housing and how do we encourage more affordable housing in the highest resource areas. So those are other initiatives that we have as well. But if you have additional ideas for us to study, look into, let us know. Yeah.
Are you guys sharing? No. All right. All right. Good evening. My name is Emmanuel Forja, and I'm Associate Traffic Engineer for the city. With me is Maureen Gardner, Senior Traffic Engineer. Tonight, I will talk about the ideas report and how it will be incorporated in the development of the proposed mobility networks for Mid-City. As shown on this slide are the goals we are aiming to accomplish.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you please share your screen? We're unable to see the presentation.
Yeah, that's why I asked.
Yeah, you were right. And Morgan and I were wrong. Yeah.
All good now. Thanks.
Okay. All right, here we go.
As shown on this slide are the goals we are aiming to accomplish for the networks with this plan update. This includes building an interconnected street system, improving walkability and rollability, as well as developing a safe and comprehensive local and regional bikeway network. Overall, the intent is to create a mobility network that accommodates all users and their mode of choice. When developing the network for each mode of travel, we take into account all the work that's been done to date relevant to that mode. This includes the mobility master plan, the pedestrian master plan, the bicycle master plan. Also, we incorporate efforts that are occurring either concurrently by the city or other agencies. This includes Sandeg's 2025 regional plan, as well as the city's updates to the street design manual, as well as the bicycle master plan. As an example, this map shows projects that were recommended as part of the city's pedestrian master plan. Projects not yet completed will be reevaluated for inclusion as recommended pedestrian improvements for this plan update. Additionally, pedestrian needs, including missing sidewalks, were identified as part of the existing conditions mobility assessment that was done for the mid-city communities. These needs will also be taken into consideration for recommended improvements. As we develop the pedestrian network, the intent is to improve the overall quality and experience of walking and rolling throughout the communities of Mid-City. To not only make it easier to move around the communities, but also to make it safer and more enjoyable. This will include recommendations for wider sidewalks, shade trees, crossing improvements at intersections, which will include either bulb outs, roundabouts, and pedestrian refuges. For bicycling, our starting point is this currently planned bicycle network that is based on adopted plans and other completed projects, such as including Sandag's bikeway projects. The CPU process will take another look at the network to identify any remaining gaps that have not been addressed, as well as looking at existing facilities that could be upgraded to provide better separation of bikes and vehicles with the goal of a continuous bike network suitable for all ages and abilities. Additionally, the city is currently updating its 2013 bicycle master plan, and it is anticipated that these two efforts will work together in developing the bike network for Mid-City. The latest and best practices for bicycle planning and engineering are being leveraged to recommend improvements that would separate bicyclists from vehicles in both time and space. Bike signals that give cyclists a head start through an intersection is an example of separation by time. Examples of separation by space include separated bikeways, bike boxes, and protected intersections that remove conflicts between bicyclists and vehicles. For constrained areas where sharing the road is necessary, traffic calming treatments can be used to improve safety by reducing speeds. Moving on to transit, depicted here is the existing transit network. Currently, Mid-City is served by 14 MTS bus routes that include 2 rapid routes, the 215 and the 235, and 8 routes that have 15-minute or better frequencies during base hours. Based on census data, approximately 12% of transit commuters in the entire county are from Mid-City. The draft 2025 regional plan proposes significant transit investments that would serve the Mid-City communities. A major investment would be the Purple Line, a rail line that will extend from the southern border of Mexico to Mission Valley with potential stops in Mid-City. Additionally, by 2035, Sandag plans additional rapids that pass through and serve Mid-City. These include the 211, which is from SDSU to downtown, or between SDSU and downtown, which would utilize Adams Avenue. The 256, which is between SDSU and Rancho San Diego, which would utilize College Avenue, and the 625, which is between SDSU and Palomar Station, currently proposed to utilize 54th Street, University Avenue, and College Avenue. Additionally, proposed rapids that utilize the 15 freeway are the 688 and 265. Sandag has already begun advanced planning on some of the proposed rapid routes, including the 625. This included route alternative analysis as well as conceptual cross sections. Also in preparation for the Purple Line, Sandag is also doing advanced planning for the 688 that goes between San Ysidro and UTC, utilizing the 805 and the 15. The city will continue to coordinate with Sandag on these and other routes as they develop. Traditional transit in Mid-City can be supplemented by local on-demand services for shorter trips within Mid-City. The current pilot Mid-City Go is ongoing, and in their draft regional plan, Sandag has identified potential service areas for neighborhood, electric vehicles, and flexible fleets. Transit improvements that increase transit efficiency include bus-only lanes and transit priority treatments at intersections. Additionally, stops can be enhanced with amenities, including shading at stops, as well as real-time bus information to improve rider experience. The key consideration for transit stops are adjacent bike facilities and their interaction at transit stop locations. Shown here is the existing roadway classification map, functional classification map. Major streets are shown in blue and collectors are shown in green. Since Mid-City is a largely built-out community, for the update, we will primarily focus on repurposing the right-of-way within existing curb-to-curb widths. Shown on this slide, the public right-of-way includes both the roadway zone, which is primarily used by vehicles, transit, and bicyclists, and the parkway zone, which is primarily used by pedestrians. For the right-of-way repurposing, we will be taking a complete streets approach that accommodates all users of the mobility network to improve safety, comfort, and overall experience. On-street parking is a finite and highly demanded resource. Strategies to manage parking include time-limited and variable or dynamic priced parking to promote increased parking turnover. Additionally, conversion to angled parking is one strategy to increase parking supply within right-of-way constraints. It can potentially increase parking supply by up to 50%, depending on the location and angle used. One consideration when using angled parking is when there's a bicycle facility, back angled parking is preferred to increase the visibility of cyclists. Some completed mobility projects within Mid-City include the Landis-City Bikeways, Streamview Phase 1, and portions of the El Cajon Boulevard bus-only lanes. Planned projects in various stages of development include Streamview Drive Improvement Phase 2, as well as Orange Avenue, University Avenue, and Federal Boulevard bikeways, as well as Euclid Avenue improvements. The draft ideas report contains draft mobility policies. On the slide here, we include policies that prioritize vulnerable users and parking management strategies to improve turnover and supply. And on this slide are draft policies to improve and enhance the transit ridership experience. So the next steps for mobility is with our consultant, we are developing mobility concepts for major corridors throughout Mid-City. This will include corridor maps that highlight existing characteristics, including right-of-way widths, transit stops, and presence of parking. We will also create aerial base maps for select locations, which can be overlaid with proposed concepts, cross-sections for comparing existing conditions to proposed concepts. And we look forward to sharing those in the near future with this group and the public in general for your input. This concludes my presentation on the mobility from the ideas report and our next steps in developing future concepts for mobility. And I will hand it off to Jonathan.
Good evening. As Alex mentioned, my name is Jonathan Avila. I'm a landscape planner in the city's planning department. I manage the city's long-range park planning program. I'm joined virtually by Wendy Wang, a landscape architect and landscape designer in the city planning department. We're happy to be here to share some of the initial ideas and concepts with the working group. Please note that we are continuously seeking park opportunities. The ideas discussed in the report will only represent a fraction of the park opportunities being proposed as part of the community plan update. Before we jump into the ideas, I wanted to summarize our draft goals. The full text of our draft goals can be found in the ideas report. The first set of draft goals aims to establish a well-connected network of facilities and ensure that everyone has equitable access to parks and recreational opportunities. The goals also focus on expanding the variety and reach of recreational opportunities while making the best use of public lands and facilities. Additionally, protecting and preserving natural resources is a key priority. The second set of draft goals are centered on climate resiliency through responsible design, focusing on delivering livable communities. Additionally, there are goals for connecting parks through networks of trails and active transportation, as well as goals of strengthening community identity through public spaces. The Parks Master Plan outlines several distinct park typologies that can be utilized throughout the city. On the screen are 6 of the park typologies found in Mid-City. Mid-City has the parks that range from the typical neighborhood park, like the one we're in tonight, Park de la Cruz, with its baseball field and playground, to open space parks with trails for hiking, such as Manzanita Canyon open space located south of us. And just across the street from us is an example of a joint use park. This park allows people to play outside of school hours. The ideas report outlines several of our park ideas. These ideas range from small pocket parks to large regional parks. Please note that the ideas on the slide and the following slides are not listed in any specific order. Idea 2, the expansion of Terra Alta Community Park would create additional freeway lids to allow for the construction of more park space. The amenities in these parks would be similar to those found in Terra Alta Community Park. Idea 3, the South Choice Lake Regional Park is situated on the site of a former landfill, which presents some challenges, but ultimately has the potential to offer a multitude of recreational opportunities. At this park site, we could build an aquatic complex, provide hiking trails, offer lighted active recreation fields and courts for extended use, and create spaces for special recreation such as the RC Flyers who already use the park. Idea 5, the Eugene Place Pocket Park, could allow for passive recreation and nature play on top of a mesa with a view. Idea 8, Monroe Avenue Pocket Park is on city-owned land at the corner of Monroe Avenue and Max Drive. Here you could see passive recreation opportunities such as benches with shade, a native garden, and educational signage. Idea 9, Postage Stamp Pocket Park calls for the formalization of the existing community space known as Postage Stamp Point into a city pocket park. Recreation amenities such as a shaded structure, educational signage, nature play, and a fitness circuit are possible. A large portion of Mid-City is defined by the canyons and mesas the community is built around and on top of. These canyons and mesas provide ideal places for hiking. Idea 2, the Kensington Loop Trail aims to utilize the Kensington open space and the Kensington Hillside open space to create a hiking loop that offers passive recreation and connection opportunities for the community. The City Heights Loop aims to formalize the excellent work Canyonlands has done in this area and provide additional resources to enhance the trails that comprise this loop. These same canyons and mesas provide ideal places for habitat restoration. In general, the report recommends the habitat restoration happen in all Mid-City canyons. This is in line with the ongoing Choice Creek Regional Park Master Plan. To create safe routes to parks and increase the connection between parks, a series of green corridors are being proposed. A number of these corridors are in line with the City Heights Urban Greening Plan completed in 2014 and the ongoing Choice Creek Regional Park Master Plan. These corridors would feature increased street trees for shade, protected bike lanes, wide sidewalks, and designated rest areas. Idea 1, the North Choice Creek Regional Park Loop will nearly be parallel with the Oak Park Trail, except that the green corridor would run on the south side of the creek. This corridor could feature protected bike lanes and a multi-use path with additional shade. Idea 3 and 4 would run parallel with the proposed Terra Alta Community Park expansion project to provide safe access to the entire length of the park. Idea 8, the 43rd Street Green Corridor would connect Normal Heights, Kensington, and Talmadge to the Choice Creek Regional Park. And Idea 10, the Federal Boulevard Green Corridor will help connect the Choice Creek Regional Park and the Mid-City communities to the Bay Shore Bikeway. The report emphasizes the need for additional public facilities, including recreation centers and aquatic complex. That Normal Heights Recreation Center could potentially be located in the western portion of Normal Heights. And the Idea 4, the South Choice Aquatic Complex could bring a much needed aquatic complex to the eastern area. Idea 6, the Kensington Normal Heights Library could potentially be located west of the 15th Freeway on Adams Avenue. And Idea 9, the Sunshine Bardini Aquatic Complex envisioned a small compact aquatic complex on the portion of Sunshine Bardini Park north of Fairmount outside of any sensitive habitats. Lastly, I will summarize our draft key policies. The full text of the draft key policies can be found in the ideas report. The key policies focus on expanding and enhancing parks, recreation centers, and open spaces to meet community needs while improving access for people and wildlife. It promotes healthy, connected neighborhoods through urban gardening and urban greening, engaging public spaces, and collaboration with developers to include recreational amenities. Additionally, it emphasizes wildfire preparedness through education, planning, and safe evacuation routes and mapping. Thank you for your time, and I'll hand it over to Morgan.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, Emmanuel. We will now pause for a 25-minute working group discussion. Please consider these questions at the top of the slide as a prompt. Would anyone in the room from our working group members like to start this discussion? Yes.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay. This is a question for the eastern area. I don't see any pedestrian amenities on that map for any of the major corridors in the eastern area, University, College Grove. There's nothing on the map. Is there anything planned that we haven't heard yet?
Hi, I'm Maureen Gardner. I'm a senior traffic engineer in the city planning department. And Eastern area is it was not a community that was studied. There was only 15 urbanized communities in the city studied when we did the pedestrian master plan. And that's why you're not seeing those pre-identified projects. However, we will be looking at those types of improvements with this plan update for the community.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Another working group member in the room have a comment? Yes, Randy, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks to the staff for developing the analysis of the mobility in the green spaces. I appreciate that one of the top mobility priorities or policies is to prioritize the vulnerable users through implementation of a complete streets network that addresses gaps in pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure, including sidewalks, enhanced crossings, roundabouts, traffic signals, protected bikeways, etc. In City Heights, sadly, we're home to disproportionate level of traffic violence. As I shared in a previous working group meeting, a report that City Heights CDC conducted when I worked there found that in the span of 4 years, 114 kids were hit by cars while walking or biking in a quarter mile of a school. And that's just the reported crashes. So we know that only a fraction of all crashes are reported. University Avenue, Oklahoma Boulevard, Euclid are some of the Vision Zero corridors in the city. And sadly, 6-year-old Lucas Leas was killed while walking across the street on University Avenue Saturday night at 54th and University, intersection that community members have been advocating for close to 2 decades for improvements. And these projects that are planned, they can't come soon enough. We've been working on them for almost 15 years now, the University Avenue Bikeway, and luckily it is going to construction soon. And I do see a good, so we need to continue to prioritize these, and I appreciate that the policy does that. And we've got to do a lot more. I see a good inventory of the planned projects. A lot of those were already planned before this report started. Are there any new projects being proposed in this mobility concept other than the policies and other than the green corridor projects, other than the green spaces?
Yes, we are just beginning the mobility improvement recommendations. Those planned projects that you see are the baseline that we are starting from through this process.
Can you speak up a little bit louder?
Can you hear me now? All right. What I was saying was that those planned projects are our baseline. That's what we're starting with when we develop our mobility recommendations for the community plan update. So from there, we will be building on and putting new recommendations throughout the community.
Okay. Can you share a little bit more about what that process will look like?
Yeah.
Developing new mobility concepts and ideas?
Yeah, towards the end of my presentation, I kind of just went over the next steps. I wish I had the map. We're still working with our consultant. We are developing corridor maps for 10 corridors throughout Mid-City as well. They will have aerial base maps, and we will be putting our proposed concepts on those base maps so we can share it with you all here and get your guys' input.
Okay. Yeah, I want to lift up a letter that the Choice Creek Coalition put together really well done and detailed letter. Groundwork San Diego led with with the help of Bike Sao Pueblo. And there was an additional letter of priorities that a lot of groups signed on to, including City 8, CDC, PANA, Bike San Diego, et cetera. It has a really good detailed list of recommendations, including like protected bikeways and tree-lined streets for 54th Street, additional connections to improve City Heights connection to downtown San Diego and North Park with a bike pedestrian bridge over the 15 freeway over Holler Street, and a lot of other mobility improvements. So I want to lift those up. One of the issues that we have with as a resident of Azalea Park is we have issues with we're kind of landlocked, especially at night. It's really not safe to walk on Fairmount Avenue due to high-speed traffic. It's a deterrent to use the transit line. I don't feel comfortable with walking my toddler across Fairmount. One of the ideas I like to lift up is a complete street on Fairmount Avenue, with widened sidewalks and a traffic safety conversion. And we might want to look into making 43rd Street a two-way street, because right now Fairmount is kind of used as a high-speed expressway for traffic going northbound, and 43rd Street is used as a high-speed expressway for car traffic going southbound. So I think if we looked at a two-way option on 43rd Street with traffic safety improvements on both sides, that could help with the north-south connectivity. I've got some more ideas, but I'll save them and I'll forward that letter over to your team. Thanks.
Thank you, Randy. Any other comments from working group members in the room? Yes, David, go ahead.
First, I'll just start with a correction. The on number 5 on the greenways, that's the Mead Avenue Greenway. That's not actually Monroe. I'm sorry, that's not Mead, it's Madison.
Thank you. I'll make sure to correct it.
My question is, the Hoover joint use pool, I mean, everything I've ever heard is that high schools are so heavy with use that they never do joint use, that it's only elementary schools that do joint use. How do you think you're going to snag that?
So yes, that is true that typically high schools are difficult to do joint use with, but we do have examples in the city. University there is a joint use with the high school. So I do think there is a model there for us to try to do that.
Okay. And I guess my last question, comment, freeway lids. Those will never be funded. Certainly not any freeway lid north of El Cajon Boulevard. The city's prioritization policy would never allocate money to a freeway lid. How do you think you would ever accomplish that?
Yes, they're going to be expensive and complicated. Typically, a lot of those projects are funded through the federal government. In the last administration, there was a grant program called Reconnected Communities, and that grant did provide for planning and construction grants. It's no longer funded, but that's not to say in the future that a future administration might not think that that were severed by highways isn't a priority. So there are options out there to fund these larger projects.
Okay, so I guess my follow-up question would be, how reliant would we be on park facilities like that that are very, very hypothetical? I mean, we need parks that are achievable, not hypothetical.
I think that when the community plan comes out, you'll see that it's going to be a good mix between these hypothetical and kind of large, big idea projects and practical approaches to providing park space and park points through all these communities.
Yes, Brittany, go ahead.
I would like to know, where did the idea about the joint use at Hoover High School, where did that idea come from?
That idea came from internal conversation. Ideas kind of brainstorming within our park planning program.
Okay, just a idea, high school, like, we're talking about right now. High school kids kind of want to be included if changes are going to be made to like open up their school more to the public. Maybe a survey should be given to the freshmen that are gonna be there for the next 4 years or so, you know what I mean?
Of course, yes. We have gone in the past to Hoover High School to get their high school students' input on our projects, specifically for the Choice Creek Regional Park Master Plan. We held, sorry, I'm like awkwardly looking at you.
It's okay.
But we have held workshops with the high school students there with coordination with Groundworks. And I'm blanking on the other group, but we do go to high schools. So in the future, that is something we will do.
Okay, before the main decision, like permanent decision is made?
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll also have to, have conversations with the school district and
Okay.
so, some of these ideas in the ideas report are big concept ideas like the freeway lids or joint use pools. So those will have, more coordination going forward.
Yeah, I think, that would be very much appreciated, just, including the residents, the kids, everybody needs to be included on.
Of course. Thank you for the comment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. And I think I saw your hand go up first, and then we'll go to Victor after.
Hey, my name is Eric Kelly. I live in El Cerrito. I'm a father of 3, and I've lived in my house about 10 years. I just wanted to touch on mobility in parks. I really want to echo what David said and others were alluding to. We need to focus on achievable ideas. It's fine to have a few slides or on the big, hairy, audacious goals, but don't mix them together with pocket parks or things that are achievable. Let's go achievable, and then you can separate out the ones. Let's just run through it in case anyone's forgotten. All right, so I'm paying for trash now, a huge increase in my water rates, a huge increase just to park at Balboa Park when I take my kids there or my wife takes my kids there. Every single thing that the city charges for is drastically being increased. City finances are a mess, and it looks like they'll be a mess into the future, right? So let's face reality here. Let's talk about what's achievable. I'm willing to pay more to make San Diego better, but I just want to lay out some things that I think need to be informed by reality. I read an article last week in The Atlantic saying that when looking at 800 cities worldwide, less than 5% of trips in United States cities are by mass transit, and the numbers for bicycles are even less. I'm not trying to attack bicycles. I want safe streets. I really like the ideas of slowing traffic. I like the ideas of making the main corridor safe for bikes and pedestrians. Those things don't cost that much, right? So I'm in agreement with you, Randy, on almost all of those things, right? But when we look at pipe dreams like the Purple Line, and we look at some of these things that you're throwing out there, and when you look at, let's be real, people just don't use mass transit in America, and not just San Diego, but in America. When I see so much money being spent on that, when I see so much money being spent on the Blue Line, and then last week I see that the city approves Bay Park to keep their, low density, even though they're right at the station, and billions of taxpayer dollars went to that, and then you let these neighborhoods stay low density. It's like, well, where's this money going? So all I want to say is let's focus on what's achievable. That should be what's highlighted in both of these, and the city's current and future projected finances need to factor into that, because I need parks now. All of our neighborhoods need parks now. I don't have any dog park I can walk my dog to, honestly, there's parks that I have to drive to and they're not in great shape. So we go to Balboa Park or whatever, where we can get some better playgrounds. So let's just update what we have, get some good playgrounds, get some dog parks within walking distance, hopefully. Yes, to aggressively working with San Diego Unified to open up as many properties in our neighborhoods that we can use for joint use. We all pay taxes to support these. I do agree we should get input from the students. But if it can be worked out, let's do it. I've lived tons of other neighborhoods. I think every single place I've lived until now, I've been able to use local schools to run around the track, use soccer fields, use them for dog parks, things like that. So let's do that. That doesn't cost that much, right? And then open space is another big, I think, potential. We could change the classification of open space, which, let's be real, the canyons are often just full of fire trap, overgrown vegetation at the best case. And at the worst case, it's loaded with homeless and trash, and it's an eyesore, right? So we could turn those into actual landscape parks that people can use with features that people can use. I've seen that in cities all over the world. That would allow us to upgrade the storm drainage through them to prevent risk of flooding, which hits this city often. And maybe even think outside the box. If you don't have the money to do that, then maybe you develop 10% of that open space, but the developer has to pay for the park, right? I don't know. The open space, the canyons are the only remaining open land for the most part. So if we want some decent sized parks, that's a good place to put it. So those are kind of my ideas. That's it. All right.
Thank you. And before I pass it over to Victor, I did just want to respond to a couple similar comments about the visionary ideas, and just adding that community plans are intended to include both realistic and visionary ideas. By having those more longer term ideas in the plan, that allows us to have something to point to when we are applying for grants, and that helps make a stronger grant application when funding becomes available. So all community plans have these visionary ideas as well as these realistic ideas. Thank you. And I'll pass it over to Victor with that.
Cool. I'll make it pretty short. So yeah, joint use parks, using them, wanting to see that with that Hoover, Crawford, right? The different schools that are within the area. And just echoing what Eric and Brittany both said about getting the youth input as well, right? So wanting to see them, not just at the high schools, but also at the community groups, organizations that serve youth, such as ourselves at Mid-City Can. I also see folks from here from PANA, and PANA has a youth congress. So these are youth that are actively involved within their communities already. So wanting to get input from them as well, going forward. Thank you.
Paul and then Nam.
Hi, I'm Paul Smith from Del Cerrito, which is part of Eastern. Kind of echoing a lot of what we just heard. I think realistically, but especially when we look at the density increases that are proposed on any of the concepts 1 through 5, like right now, we've already heard so much about how mobility, how there's fatalities, there's injuries, there's collisions, there's a lot of that. And I think we really need to focus on really correcting our mobility challenges now, before we really think about increasing our density so significantly, like some of the other area plans have already suggested. Recently, we attended a presentation by Sandag regarding the bikeways. I think that what they're doing is adequate. I'm an avid bike rider on the weekends. I do not ride my bike on El Cajon Boulevard because I don't need to. I can ride it on either Mead and eventually on Orange or the University Bikeway. So I look at El Cajon Boulevard in particular. You want to add a lot of density there, which is what's probably going to happen. But the reality is the infrastructure there, with its 2 lanes in each direction, if it's a dedicated bike bus lane and then a single auto lane, and you already want to do traffic calming, and then you want to talk about increasing density, there isn't really going to become an east-west corridor that's viable, which is going to turn the neighborhoods and the collector roads that are already there even more of a nightmare. I mean, in the Kental area of Aldine, I think is what it is, that's a nightmare. I mean, if you're doing commuting down there, it's just a lot of these projects, we need to focus on those main corridors, make sure they're adequate. And if they're not adequate for the current population, I can't see them being adequate for 100% or 200% increase in that. Regarding green spaces in general, we definitely need them. And especially considering the college area doesn't have any green space. So if they're going to go to something, they may go to the closest one, which is our spaces. Again, if we don't have green space where you can go to, I live in the same neighborhood as him, it's the same way. I have to ride my bike or drive to go somewhere. And now you have to pay to park when you get there too. So that's fun. So again, my focus is increased density we don't already have adequate infrastructure for the density that's here, is a problem. And then when it comes to mass transit, we talk about creating mass transit that can get people from point A to point B generally for work. We haven't really talked about the fact that the mid-city hasn't really focused at all on actually bringing in quality jobs or careers in this area versus just sort of like transactional jobs. Like, nothing wrong with that, but it's not really moving the needle forward for advancement. So that's it. Thank you.
This is Nam Nguyen from City Heights. In regards to the pedestrian walkways, something echoing a lot of the concerns about adding more density, but facing the limits of capacity that's on places like El Cajon Boulevard right now. One thing to potentially suggest is sort of redesigning and resuggesting the amount of setbacks, but also allow for overhangs for the creation of arcades and shaded walkways so that we have the opportunity to expand the pedestrian right of way, but also not limit the ability for the developments to build on top of it and reduce their footprint too much, so that we can have expanded sidewalks while still maintaining some of the roadways that we still have, so we can just give ourselves that bit more space. So please consider the redesign of the setbacks and allow for potential overhangs and arcades for new developments. Also, I want to emphasize improvements to the bus stops. I appreciate that. And then also in regards to micromobility, with all of the talks about parks and how there's so few right now, and we want to get to places. I was at a meeting with City Heights CDC and members of the community, and one thing that they brought up was how do they get to places from their house to the bus stop when they have, say, 4 kids. And so I would suggest looking deeper into micromobility within the neighborhood, so you have intra-neighborhood transit for that last mile from a bus stop to their front door, or from their front door to neighborhood hubs like major grocery stores or community centers or parks, so that there is a reliable transit option to access what little green space is available in the mid-city area. And then so further speaking to parks, I'd like to see more emphasis on if and when we do build new parks, the emphasis on native species, and from native species also potentially culturally relevant species for indigenous peoples, the Kumeyaay. And then expanding upon that, I would like to see the mid-city area across the board, every parcel be zoned for community gardens as a right, because then that way any parcel becomes an opportunity for a community garden or a community urban farm as well. And then lastly, across the board for mid-city, whatever steps we need to take to allow for land use for urban farming, so that any parcel available can be used for urban farming to assist in the food situation that is in mid-city. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nam. Brittany, I see your hand up.
Yes, I would like to just remind everybody of the times that we currently live in. I'm hearing about more parks being built. I'm not sure on how many parents are here today, but I know that I'm a parent of 2. And in City Heights, we are topping the top 3 of the most sex offenders that live around our schools and park areas. Rosa is number 1. Central Elementary comes in at number 2. And Sherman Heights is number 3. And that's out of the San Diego School District. While we're talking about building more parks, we should get some security in the current parks that we have now and see how that works out. I'm just, I'm not very excited to hear about 41 sex offenders living within a mile of an elementary school and 82 within the zip code. That does not sit very well with me. So to, continue, the thought of, building more parks, that's awesome. But there's reports of parents being scared to even bring their children outside to school, let alone a park. So I just wanted to, put that into the air.
Thank you, Brittany. And we have about 5 more minutes of working group member discussion. Randy, on to you.
A few more ideas I wanted to share. Thanks for the opportunity. Wanted to point out something that is unique to City Heights and compared to some other communities in San Diego. But we have a disproportionate number of freeways in City Heights and Mid-City, 3 freeways, the 805, the 15, and the 94, with the 15 being planned right through the middle of Mid-City. So it'd be worth, I think, taking a special look at that in the mobility plan about how do we improve connectivity? How do we reconnect our communities that have been divided by freeway infrastructure? I do like the expansion of the Toronto Park, and I'm for implementable ideas. So I think having a balance is good. In particular, in regards to the 94, Caltrans did have plans for a bike path behind the Home Depot. So I'd like to see that revived. That would connect residents from Southwest City Heights to Southeast San Diego and Mount Hope area. A couple of the freeways in the regional plan, the 805 and the 94, actually have planned expansions, which I think is unfortunate. And we know that there's a relation between cancer for young people and freeway proximity. So hopefully we can take a position against that, additional expansions in our communities. There's in the current community plan, there's plans for a project called the Leah Street extension. I like to see that removed from the future roadway network. We don't need more streets in Mid-City, to be honest. I understand the goal of breaking up big blocks and super blocks. There's ways to do that with pedestrian and bike infrastructure, hawk signals, other amenities can achieve that pedestrian safety, which I'm all for. And in the case of Leah Street, I think that could be a good example of a project that would be better served as a bike and pedestrian path instead of a future road. And then the last other project I wanted to uplift is a project in the letter I mentioned, which is a trail and path from Mount Hope along Home Avenue to 39th Street. There's actually a little walkable trail there now. But that could be a good short-term project that improves our connectivity between our communities and Mount Hope and City Heights. Thanks.
Thank you. And sorry, I just want to go on this half of the room first. Yes, Di.
Thank you. I know we're getting near the 25 minutes, so I'll make it quick. And I just have one thing really right now. I saw on the slide about different categories and classes of bike lanes. And I didn't understand, for example, it listed a class 3 bike lane down Aldine towards Fairmount. And I want to know, does that mean it's currently a class 3, or is it going to be future planned as a class 3, or is that open for discussion?
Yes, that class 3 is the currently planned route, but we are open to discussion for that one as we develop the network.
Thank you. I want to make a point that it's awesome that we're discussing these parks and the mobility, like other working group members have said, this is very much needed. And one of the key things, I think, to the plan update, I want to speak from personal experience, since I do live in Talmadge, that we need a safe separated bike lane going down Aldine. We need that from Aldine to Fairmount. It's a huge corridor, and I didn't actually know if I saw it marked as a corridor, a major corridor on Aldine towards Fairmount. But I myself have taken alternative modes of transportation, not a car, and rolled down that and felt very unsafe, and will never do it again in its current state. And it needs to be connected. We need to have the city connected to each other. Right now, that is prohibiting a lot of people I think more people, actually, I know more people will be motivated to use alternative modes of transportation if we provide safe access points for it. And this is a key safe access point, I think.
Thank you. And before we turn back to the working group members in the room, we have about 1 minute left. So I do want to just turn it over to the working group member online to make sure you have a chance to comment. Aparna, can you help facilitate that?
Thanks, Morgan. Yes, Zach, I see your hand raised. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, Zach here from the Eastern area. I just wanted to call out in the plan that I don't see a lot of really great protected cycle paths going north and south through most of the mid-city maps. I ride my bike frequently from the Eastern area to Mission Valley. I ride down Callwood, 54th, Fairmont Avenue Expressway, which is what it is. It's an expressway until you get to the 5. And these are all really inadequate facilities. The Montezuma protected bike lane is nice, but as soon as you get to the bottom of the hill, it dumps you with a ton of cars going 55 miles an hour, jockeying for position to get on the 8. And that's terrifying. I have an e-bike and it moves pretty fast, and it's still like taking your life in your hands every time. So I think more connections to the valley from on top of the hill so that you can kind of fill in some of those transportation gaps. I mean, we have a really good trail on 15, but it's actually kind of like one of the worst trails because it dumps you in Mission Valley where you can't really get to anything because there's no way to cross the river to get to all the things that most people are going to, like the stadium or shopping, whatever. So just more north-south paths that are protected and more protected intersections where these things intersect, because it's really frustrating when you're riding in a protected bike lane and then as soon as you enter the most dangerous part of your ride, all of your protections are gone and you just get a little bit of faded green paint. And then we have people in this room who wonder why nobody takes anything but their car because everything else sucks. So better bike infrastructure, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Back over to Morgan.
Thanks, Aparna. And I do see that we have a couple working group members that would still like to speak. However, we do have this time dedicated towards public comment. If there is time left over after the public comment, we will return to the working group member discussion, and otherwise we can collect your comments via email, phone calls, or comment cards. So this concludes the working group discussion portion. We will now move on to public comment. In order to stick to our meeting agreement, one moment. Thank you. In order to stick to our meeting agreement of staying concise, respectful, and creating time for as many voices as possible to contribute, there could be a comment that comes up where we're going back and forth, and we may move on or revisit that. Any comments that we don't have an answer to in the moment, we may follow up after the meeting in our meeting summary notes. For the members of the public, you'll have 30 seconds or up to 1 minute. We'll see how many people line up at the podium. You can also fill out a comment card if you don't want to speak or if we run out of time, and they will be recorded as public input. For members of the public that would like to provide a comment online, you can write your comment in the chat and it will be recorded, or you can raise your hand virtually using the raise hand function, and we will go to you after the in-person public comment. So for members of the public in person who would like to comment, please line up at the podium. You'll see Selena standing up there. And I think we could do 1 minute. I'll be timing everyone and let you know when your time is up.
I was too tall for this thing. Sorry about that. Good evening, members. My name is Ahmed Malnomar, and I came here tonight and the nights before where you guys were meeting. And we wrote a letter to you guys to address. We're the Somali community here in City Heights. I grew up here and I was raised here. I went to middle school, high school, and everything else. And the letter that we write for you guys was to recognize and understand the Somali town culture for the City Height Eastern. And I have not heard tonight any of you talked about it and in this corridor. And this is an area that we have been working on since 2010. Our members of the communities and have seen it tremendous development on our neighborhood. There's no neighborhoods different than any other neighborhood, either Kensington or whether I live on 50th Street or there's a gathering space also that's being used more than the parks that has been talked about here tonight.
Thank you.
And-
Your 1 minute is up.
And it's not included in any of your plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
May I start? Okay. Good evening. My name is Rahma Abdi. I'm the resident of City Heights and also Director of Organizing and Campaign with PANA, the Partnership for Advancement of New Americans. Like Randy mentioned it today, on Saturday, a child died on University Avenue, right in our neighborhood. I'm here because I'm scared this will happen again. The Mid-City Plan wants to extend Lee Street to University Avenue. That means more cars, more traffic, more danger for our kids. We don't need another street. We need opposite. We need ways to slow down cars. We need a safe place for our kids to walk and bike. We need ways to get to the new Choice Triangle Park without risking our lives. I'm asking, please take out the Lee Street extension. Instead, give us a sidewalk, give us a bike lane, or give us a crossroad. My kids should be able to play outside, ride the bike, to go to the park without worrying for them to come home safe.
Your 1 minute is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Selena, do you mind standing by the public comment and also having a timer so so the members of the public can also see how much time they have per requested? Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity. My name is Mahmoud Omar, and I'm a community organizer working with the Partnership for the Advancement of New Americans. I live in the same complex where the child that hit and run incident live. I just heard the bang, and as I came outside and I saw the child laying there and the mother crying, and really that still hurts me a lot, you know. And so I'm requesting, we don't need another street. We need the, opposite. We need ways to slow down cars. We need safe place for our kids to walk and bike. We need a way to get the new Choice Triangle Park without risking our lives. And I'm asking you, please take out the Lee Street extension instead. Give us sidewalks, give us bike lanes, give us crosswalks. And my kids shouldn't be able to play outside, to ride their bikes, to go to the park without me worrying if they would come home. We already lost one child on Saturday. Please don't let be another one. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect timing.
Hi, my name is Karen Kinney. I live in Talmadge. However, I do a lot of business both in Kensington and Normal Heights along Adams Avenue. And I've been very pleased to see the lighted, even though I'm mostly not a pedestrian, I really like the lights at pedestrian crosswalks. Trying to cross from Adams Avenue one side to the other is really a drag. Most cars do not stop. They do usually stop with the flashing lights, not always, but usually. But what I would like to say also is I thank this working group and the city for everything that you've put into this. This is a huge job, and it's a large area that is very diverse, both in terms of income and ethnicity. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Sinclair, and I'd like to address the
Public input process. About 1,200 adults attended community workshops that lasted 1 to 2 hours, so roughly about 1,800 hours of engagement. In contrast, 700 students from four schools, Hoover and Crawford High and Clark and Mann Middle School, each spent about 15 hours in lessons led by the planning department staff and consultants, which totaled around 10,000 hours of student engagement. So the students contributed about 85% of all the total engagement hours, while adults represented about 15% for the public input. Nothing wrong with student input, but that, since it was guided, it should have been listed as community education. Also, adults were asked to rank specific categories like safety, parks, affordability. That's quantitative data as opposed to what the students did, which was qualitative data. That was more creative.
Your 1 minute is up. Thank you.
Okay, and even with that, the top concerns, even I'm hearing from the members of
Miss,
the-
your 1 minute is up. I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry.
We want to make sure we can hear from as many voices as possible that are in the room with us tonight. If there is leftover time, we will see that.
Hi, members of the working group and city staff. I'm Priscilla Ann Berge. I am a Mid-City resident in Kensington Talmadge, and I want to thank staff and the working group members for modifying language and actually revising so that all of the Talmadge Park Estates Historic District, as listed on the National Register, will now be in the city's potential Talmadge Park Historic District. And secondly, for clarifying language that in the future, there could be a combination of Kensington Park, Manor, and Heights into one district. I just want to thank you and all the things I've learned tonight. It's fascinating. Think more about parks. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Paul Jameson. I live in Kensington, and I wanted to advocate for the bus lane, dedicated bus lane on El Cajon Boulevard, east of Fairmont. I think Sean Ela Rivera has come out supporting that, and I think that would be a great idea because then SB 79 would potentially apply there, and we could get the housing that we need, not just along El Cajon Boulevard, but around it. I'd really like to see some more housing up into Kensington, where I live. It's kind of been off the table when I've attended Ken Tile planners meetings. There's kind of been, I think I was the only person out of 30 or 40 people that wanted to see any kind of upzoning in the neighborhood. So I'd like to see a fair distribution of housing throughout our neighborhoods. And in terms of people not using transit, I just took the bus to jury duty this morning. I take it up to UCSD. I see plenty of students and high school students using it. So let's invest in housing around rapid transit. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Laura Henson, and I wanted to thank Kelly Stanko and Kelsey Kalin for meeting with me and my team from Talmadge Park Estates Historic District on 2 occasions to find a way to keep Talmadge Park Estates Historic District listed on the National Register together and not separated as the survey had indicated. So thank you so much for your time and attention and your willingness to consider that as a locally recognized district. Also, I would like to see concept 5 because I'd like to see businesses on the bottom and our empty lots on El Cajon and University. Then I'd like to see professional offices, and then I'd like to see 3 stories of affordable housing. This way, people do not have to take transit or get in a car. They can actually walk to the boulevard in safety and work and get professional services. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Cameron Lindsay Hewitt. I'm the president of the Talmadge Historical Society, and I wanted to thank Kelly and Kelsey for engaging with the Talmadge Historical Society to help us. It's promising to see that they are willing to identify it as a potential for a local district. It's important to preserve our architectural heritage as a tangible connection with our history, so I appreciate that. I would like to thank you for the comment. I'm also in the planning group in Kensington, and we were talking about proposing that separate bike path on Aldine. I live in Talmadge and look over that road, and I see bikes get very close to getting clipped all the time. So I'm part of that group of people working to propose that separate bike lane, and that was identified in the proposal today as one of the ideas. So we're working with getting that started. So I agree with that completely. It's necessary to get bikers off that road and be safe so we can transit and connect our two communities together.
Evening. My name is Rachel Zano Castro. I want to thank everybody for their time tonight. I work in City Heights at the Partnership for the Advancement of New Americans, and just would like to add my voice to the need to have more pedestrian access, more bike access, and traffic calming measures, particularly off University Avenue. We don't need additional streets. We need more access to recreational places in a continues to be a park poor area. So no on the extension of Leah Street, and yes to pedestrian biking access to the park.
Hi, Jeff Huter, Talmadge resident. One thing I'd like to see is some actual mock-ups on these greening of our streets. One of the things we found is we see these complete streets and wide sidewalks and streeteries and all this stuff and all the community plans across the city. And then but you only have two choices. You either have to move the buildings away from the sidewalk or you have to move the sidewalk into the street. And the reality is when you get there and anybody who goes into Hillcrest up 6th Avenue, they had a beautiful street redesign plan and you know, those buildings are right on the sidewalk and the sidewalk's 5 feet wide. And if they can't make it happen there, where are they going to make it happen? So I think it's important to look at actual physical realizable places and mock those up and start from there. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mahiuddin Sheikh. I'm a resident, over 30 years resident in City Heights, and I grew up around this area, very familiar with University Avenue, 54th Leo Street. The reason I don't want Leo Street built is because it's against all our wishes. We want to reduce vehicles, not increase them. We want safety and for the environment, for the climate. And that's why against the Leo Street. Thank you.
My name is Danielle Lehman. I'm a CD9 rep on the Parks and Rec Board and a Talmadge resident, and I have 4 quick points for the Parks Department. Number 1, Talmadge needs a park. In the plan, it says a park for every neighborhood, and so far we have been ignored. Number 2, consider podiums over Fairmont Ave instead of freeway lids. That could increase a lot of acreage and connect both Kensington and Talmadge. Number 3, South Choias can't have a pool unless you move the ops yard, because the pool needs to be built on native soil, and you cannot penetrate the cover over the landfill with a pool. And lastly, number 4, where exactly will the pool go in the Sunshine Berardini area? Because the GDP is now being going through the works to be approved through the Parks and Rec Board. So I'd like a little more detail on that. Thank you.
Let her say something. Okay, what do you want to say?
Hi. I can't say.
Okay. Thank you, Aya. Okay. I've lost it. So you have a letter coming to you that's signed by dozens of community organizations who care about the safety of our children, our ability to walk safely in our neighborhoods. And essentially says that we do not need another autocentric collector
traffic channel that replicates the dangerous conditions and tragic outcomes witnessed on University Avenue day in and day out. I've personally witnessed so many pedestrian vehicle accidents, and you heard testimony from community and Randy lifting up just how dangerous it is. The other thing that Leah Street does, it literally says, instead of driving 0.3 miles to a stoplight and turning right, you can cut through a neighborhood. That is not safe. It's not equitable, and it creates more traffic violence against communities that are historically discriminated against. So please do not include Leah Street Extension. Create a bikeway, pedestrian connectivity.
Thank you. Your 1 minute is up.
Good evening. The Leah Street extension proposal through the Global Village is inequitable, unfair, arbitrary, and discriminatory. It is fundamentally unfair to place the physical, social, and economic burden of building Leah Street solely on our community. The Global Village site is 2.2 acres, and the community needs for this land are considerable. PANA serves the city's communities that have been the most invested in, and the proposed road cuts the buildable land area that would be used for this project. So I'm pleased requesting that this group removes that out of the plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone in the room who has spoken. I'll now turn it over to Aparna to take any comments from members of the public online tonight.
Thanks again, Morgan. At the moment, I do not see any hands up, but any public members here with us virtually who would like to voice their thoughts? Okay, it does not look like we have any public comments here virtually, although we do have 2 comments on the chat if nobody in person would like to share their feedback. I can read the chats, but let me know.
Yeah, we can take the chat comments.
One of them being from Lindsay. She wants to know what the plan for historical preservation areas are in terms of the light tan color. She does not see any key or legend. That's one of the questions. Are we taking answers at the moment, or should I move on to the next one?
We have a historic representative coming to answer the question.
Perfect.
Thank you for your question. I believe the map that's being referenced is the map that shows potential historic districts, areas that need to be surveyed to confirm that. And then those are shown in one color. Areas that we are proposing to exempt from the over 45-year review are in another color. And then the rest of the map is essentially beige. Those are areas that did not have the same kind of shared history that the post-World War II areas had, that we could kind of more quickly and economically evaluate at this level. They have more of that pre-World War II development pattern where every lot on every block developed at a different point in time. And so we're not able to determine whether those areas should be exempt, but they also don't necessarily convey that they're a potential historic district. So for those areas, they would continue to be subject to the city's current over 45-year review process, where we evaluate every parcel that has a structure 45 years old or older on it when a development is proposed on that parcel.
Thank you so much. Sam, I will grant you access. Please go ahead, Sam, if you'd like to share something.
Oh, thank you. I just want to add my voice to say what a lot of other people have said, that there needs to be better pedestrian safety measures in place. We saw the tragedy that happened on Saturday, and then just like 5 days before that in San Carlos, another middle school student got hit and killed by a car. So I just really want everyone who's planning to take into consideration how unsafe it is as a pedestrian here. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. One last comment from Judy Harrington. She says the Mid-City Fire Safe Councils would like to see a goal to make our parks examples of excellent fire safe landscaping based on latest science, especially in high fire zones. I guess that's it. I don't see any other hands raised here.
Thanks, Aparna. Oh, sorry for that was very loud. Yes, so now we'll turn it back over to the working group members that were previously had their time shortened. So Paul, starting with you.
Thank you. Kind of something that Brittany had said at the very end of our working group session regarding park safety. I'm also on one of the regional park committees with Colina del Sol. And that particular park has a challenge because part of the green space there isn't really being activated in the way that it should be and it's intended for. And a lot of that has to do with it's difficult to police, both for the police department and for the rangers that are there. So recently they proposed, they actually kind of approved allowing the golf course to potentially petition to extend their footprint, if you will, which would take away public access. But this was being looked at as the best option since enforcement is so difficult there. The main reason why enforcement is difficult there is because that park does not have a curfew or any hours. So hands are kind of tied when it comes to that. So in the early morning, the park is problematic potentially. So that's bad for the local rangers and the staff there. And then even hearing from the community resource officer, it's a challenge. They have a lot of challenges just kind of getting that part of the park safer for the residents. We've heard residents there on Orange Avenue come to the meetings and say that it's not safe, that they've been threatened. Yeah, and so I feel like, I know that has to go to city council for that sort of change to go into effect. So hopefully this group can look at that as the park says, not only just creating more parks, but creating safer parks for that. So thank you.
Thanks, Paul. And were there other members? Yes, David, go ahead.
I just want to say when a street is so bad that people from other neighborhoods are complaining about it, Aldine Drive, will we ever have a discussion focused on that? If not here, maybe in our community?
Yes, we plan to bring our concepts for Aldine Drive to the working group.
Thank you.
Brittany, go ahead.
I noticed some trees planted on University. I just wanted to say that they look awesome. So we got the trees started, everybody. Yes. Thanks.
Thanks. And Nam.
So with the talks about parks, some of the solutions that have been done in other cities is to require developments, particularly dense developments, mixed-use developments, to include open public spaces as part of their site design. Has that been considered as a requirement for this community plan update, particularly with like concept 5, where you want to maximize density? It might be worthwhile to have that be a requirement for a certain density level to require public space, like public piazzas or public plazas, so that in addition to the parks that we want, there can also be other public spaces for people to gather instead of waiting for a park to be made.
Yes, there are methods we can use to do that. For example, in the College of Claremont Community Plan right now, we are using a community enhancement overlay zone, which does require development in those areas to have public spaces built with them. So it is an option, and it's something that we can explore in the Mid-City Community Plan.
We have time for about one more comment. Yes, I can take your comment.
Lynn Edwards from the Eastern area. And I just want to echo the concerns I heard tonight about Leah Street being completed, because this street completion has come to the planning committee before over the years. Completing Leah Street next to a park is really not going to be compatible for pedestrian safety. That street's just going to be a cut through like Choyas Parkway is now. Choyas Parkway gets about 4,500 cars a day, and they're all going between 45 and 50 miles an hour. I don't see that that works to be next to a park where people and kids particularly are going to go. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone, both from the working group members. Oh, I'm so sorry. We can take one more comment, and then at 7:55, we need to move on. Go ahead, Victor.
Just some things I thought about after I heard from other folks. Part of it, I just want to thank those that came out today and gave public comment, especially the folks for the Leah Street rate. It was tragic to hear about that on Saturday, right before the day for CCOZS. The micro transit, I love it. I think that we should extend the hours. Right now it goes up to 5 p.m. Extending it past that, I think would increase the usage of folks being able to use it. Also adding more cars, especially as we expand the geographical area of it. The diverse types of parks as well. I forgot till I went to the bathroom that having like skate parks, right? Soccer fields, those other different types of spaces, as well as ensuring that they have lighting. Right now we use parks, it tends to be during the day, but wanting to use them at night as well, especially right now we're gonna have the time change coming up soon. And it gets dark at 5 p.m. Wanting to make sure that the folks are able to use that past that within reasonable hours. And then lastly, just I love seeing the angle parking. I know there's housing being built without parking now, so that we can maximize the use that we can there. If angle parking fits more parking spaces, then making sure that we do that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you, members of the working group and members of the public for your thoughtful comments tonight. I do want to just discuss next steps before we wrap up and share some upcoming events and how you can stay involved in the planning process. So you can visit the Plan Update Project website at planmidcity.org. You can sign up for email updates, and we frequently are posting updated documents, the latest and greatest way. So keep checking that. It updates all the time. You can also provide a comment to the draft ideas report. We have a public comment form online. If you can leave a comment by November 21st, the comments are per chapter. So we'll take any additional comments for the ideas report through that means. You can also participate in the upcoming public engagement activities. So we will have our next working group meeting probably in the winter. We try to have them quarterly. We have focus groups coming up, open houses that we're planning, a second planning commission workshop as an informational item, as well as the presenting to the mobility board as an informational item, and the Parks and Recreation Board. You can also send us additional comments, suggestions, or questions via email to planmidcity@sandiego.gov, and one of our community planners will get back to you. And if we didn't have time to get to your comment tonight, we also have some comment cards in the back of the room. Anything you write and share with us tonight will be part of the public record, and we can include in our meeting summary. So with that, that concludes our working group meeting. Thank you, everyone, for your time.